Great. Hey, thanks everybody for joining tonight. Uh, we're close to actually having some live meetings, so bear with us for another maybe couple of months. We're going to have a first outing's going to be in August, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. I'll introduce Dr. Ellis, and then we can do our club business after Dr. Ellis decides to have dinner. Hopefully y'all have heard Jamie before. It's a treat to have him talk to the Alamance County Club. Dr. Ellis is a Gann Endowed Professor of Entomology in the Department of Entomology and Nematology at the University of Florida. Go Gators. His responsibilities are in extension, instruction, and research related to honeybees. Regarding his extension work, Dr. Ellis created the University of Florida, South Florida, and Caribbean bee colleges, and the University of Florida Master Beekeeping Program. As an instructor, Dr. Ellis supervises PhD and master's students in addition to offering an online course in apiculture. Dr. Ellis and his team conduct research projects in the field of honeybee husbandry, conservation, and ecology, and integrated crop pollination. I don't know how Dr. Ellis fits all that on his business card, but tonight we're interested in hearing Dr. Ellis talk about online resources. And I know online resources can be misleading at times, but hopefully he'll straighten us out. Dr. Ellis, glad to have you.
Well, thank you so much. And I'll turn my video on and wave at all of you to show that I'm actually really here. It's not just a robot. I am broadcasting from my home, so I tend to keep my video off while I'm giving my presentation. And then at the very end, when we do a Q&A, I'll bring my video back up so that you guys can see me and we can interact a little bit better. And I find it just kind of increases the quality of the images that I'll be showing you soon when I share my screen, as well as the sound quality. So it's my absolute pleasure to be able to speak to you guys tonight. I really appreciate you having me. I know that the coronavirus has transformed a lot of folks' lives, and I've been giving a lot of Zoom talks. I think this is my 50th talk this year. So one of the things that Zoom has done is it's kept me from traveling so much, but it's nearly doubled the number of my talks. I usually speak about to 50 bee clubs, usually in about a year, and it's not even halfway through the year yet, and I'm already hitting that quota. So it's really my pleasure and honor to be able to speak to you guys. I'm also grateful that you joined me, given the title of the talk tonight. I know that very superficially it sounds pretty boring, and I appreciate the fact that you're giving me a chance. When I started giving talks, sorry, I've been giving talks for a very long time. I've given over 1,000 talks to beekeeping clubs at this point, but a couple years ago, when I've had Wi-Fi access at the venues where I lecture, I found myself showing folks how to find information about what I was going to discuss prior to discussing it. And then I realized that folks enjoyed that part of my talk as much as they did what I was actually telling them in the first place. So then it dawned on me, well, maybe I should put together a presentation on how to find reliable information online. And then I did that and started giving it to a few clubs as kind of a pilot run. And folks ended up liking it after all. So that's what I'm going to do with you tonight. There's no formal presentation, One of the beauties of Zoom and internet access means I can show you exactly what I'm doing. So right now you should be able to see my laptop screen, and I have just brought up Google. All right. So it's all about online resources tonight, how you can find some reliable resources as you get into beekeeping. I see there's 25 folks logged in tonight. I'm one of those. That means there's 24 additional sites. And given that there's 24 additional sites, that means there's at least 24 beekeepers listening to me, which means some of you are hobbyists, some of you are sideliners, some of you may be commercial, some of you might have started yesterday, some of you may have been keeping bees for 50 years or longer. So I'm going to try to give you a presentation that appeals hopefully to all of you. And again, it's my privilege to be able to do that for you tonight. And one of the things that is also important to know is there's a chat box at the very bottom of this screen, or at least the bottom of my screen, not sure where it shows up on your screen. If you have any questions whatsoever, please drop them in the chat box. And at the end of the presentation, I'll ask the moderator to read those questions to me, and I will do my best to answer anything I talk about tonight, or any questions that you have in general about beekeeping. So, this talk is about online resources. Now, there's obviously a lot of resources that are not online. Some of my favorite resources for beekeepers include local bee clubs. That's what you guys are. It includes state bee clubs, national bee clubs, regional bee clubs, international bee clubs. Some of my favorite written materials are, of course, the two national bee journals, Bee Culture and American Bee Journal. Some of my favorite books, The Hive and the Honeybee, ABC and XYZ of Bee Culture, the traditional reference books, and on and on and on. There's so much information out there. However, we are quickly moving to a fast digital pace in the world. And so many people are bypassing books and periodicals and bee clubs, et cetera, and going straight to the internet to find resources that appeal to them. And the power of the internet is it allows us to group think. The downside of the internet is anybody with a computer or smartphone can put anything they want to online. And that makes it incredibly misleading depending on the source of information that you find. So what I would like to do is highlight kind of 5 or maybe 5.5 different places that I think all beekeepers should have bookmarked on the internet, because they're great places for resources. Now, obviously, I'm a little biased with this very first one. I'm going to give you my lab's website, but then right after that, I told you there's 5.5. Well, my lab website's the half, and the thing that goes with it's the 1, so 1.5, and then I'll show you 4 other sites. But it's kind of important to think about these resources, and as I'm talking about them, feel free to put the actual web address for these sites in the chat box. Maybe the moderator can do that as you guys Google on your end as well. So at the very beginning, it's just important to remember that in my case, at least, I work for the University of Florida, right? If you Google University of Florida honeybee, University of Florida honeybee, and press enter, your very first option is going to be my lab's website. Now, I could just as easily give you this presentation with web addresses, a long list, but I find it a lot easier to teach you how to fish rather than just give you the fish. So in this case, I just used a Google search for University of Florida honeybee, and that's my lab's website. The very first option, I'm going to click on it, and then I'm just going to spend about 5 or 10 minutes talking about the resources that we have on my website. And then I'm going to show you sister labs resources as well. So right off the bat, right here at the top of my lab's website, you get a scrolling marquee that shows you kind of some of the latest things that my team and I are doing. And of course, I'm a little bit biased here. This is my lab's website, but I promise I'll give some mad props to David Tarpey's website, since you guys are in North Carolina. And I also just want to make sure and teach you kind of in general about university websites. And I'll just use my website as an example to do that. Now, right at the top is the scrolling marquee. The very first thing that you see is that my team and I have a podcast. We call it Two Bees in a Podcast. We just started doing it last year. We actually had plans to do it even before COVID came into our mental existence. We started releasing episodes just about weekly. January of last year, we've continued it through this year, and we are interviewing bee scientists and beekeepers from all around the world. We also take questions from our listeners through our social media accounts, and I do my best to answer those questions at the end of the podcast. We also have a 5-minute management segment where we talk about pointers and tricks and tips with regard to beekeeping. So my co-host Amy Vu and I really just try to make this a fun resource for beekeepers. Now, you can get to this podcast through the standard podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, others. But the benefit of going through my lab's website, if you click on it, is that every episode is there. And when you click on an episode, not only can you listen to it from the website, but you see who we're interviewing, what the 5-minute management is about, the questions that I'm answering from our listeners, and links to all the things that we discuss and the folks we interview. So the benefit again of going through the website to get it rather than those other places, it's just kind of like a full list of resources related to that topic. It's been quite surprising to us kind of how successful Two Bees in a Podcast has become. We now are listened to by beekeepers in dozens and dozens of countries. So we're very honored to be able to be in the cars and on the phones and in the living rooms of beekeepers. And I hope you consider it a potential resource for you. As I scroll forward, and I promise that I am not going to advertise my lab exclusively. I just want to use my lab as an example of something that's coming up that's maybe even more important. But my lab, we do bee colleges. Recently, we've been doing virtual bee colleges, but now we're going back face to face in August. But you can click on information there. One of the most exciting things that I think my team and I are doing at the moment is we have migrated our Master Beekeeper program entirely online. And this is well before our plan for this was well before COVID kind of pushed people online anyway. And the reason we wanted to do it online is we really truly believe we could offer superior education online compared to face-to-face meetings. Face-to-face meetings, we're limited in the amount of time we can spend with beekeepers. We're limited into what we can do. But online, we can load resource upon resource, make the program, we feel, incredibly rich. We've also worked with professional online adult education specialists to help us create learning strategies and learning tools to help people who are taking this program learn as much as they can about bees and beekeeping. So there's 4 levels in this program, apprentice, advanced, master, and master craftsman. It takes years to go through all 3. Each level has somewhere between 40 to 50 different lectures related to bees and beekeeping. And it's accessible all around the world on your smartphone, on your computer, on your laptop, just all around the world. And it's completely online based. We use the revenues generated from that to pay the person who manages the program. She does a great job. And like I said, by the time you go through the program, you'll have seen over 200 different lectures on honeybees and beekeeping. It's probably the largest lecture library of beekeeping, maybe even in the world. Now, one of the things that I want to stress is that online education is going to continue to grow around the world. This is where things were headed even before an international pandemic kind of shut things down. But my team and I fully appreciate that there are beekeepers who want access to the lectures, but don't want to have to go through the Master Beekeeper program to get them. So what we have done is we have created what we call a bee learning short course series. So bee learning instead of e-learning. E-learning is the electronic learning, online learning. We call them bee learning because it's just a pun. But the way it works, imagine again that we have this 200 lecture library. Then we can go through that whole library and excise out lectures that are similar in nature. So for example, we can go through the 200 lecture library, pull out all the lectures that have to do with Varroa, and then we can package them in a Varroa bee learning module that you can just take at your leisure. There's no test, There's no certification. There's no pressure. There's nothing. If you just want the Varroa information, it's right there. If you just want the small hive beetle information, it's right there. If you just want the information on honeybee biology, it's right there. It's basically no strings attached. So the Master Beekeeper program is a structured way of going through it. There's certifications and examinations. You come out of the end of that program, with a lot of education related to bees and beekeeping, with a lot of certifications and credentials. But maybe that's not what you want to do. Maybe you only want to learn about specific topics. So I'll click on the Bee Learning short course as an example, because we just started releasing Bee Learning short courses, and we've only released 5 so far. The first of those is African Bees in the Americas, an introduction to honeybees, managing Varroa with integrated pest management, planning and delivering public outreach events, protecting bees from pesticides, and we have about 40 or so more in development. And I know you see all these kind of strange, odd, ridiculous registration amounts, but the registration amounts are directly linked to the number of lessons in those modules. They're $7 a lesson. So for example, there's 10 lessons on managing Varroa, right? There's 6 lessons on introduction to honeybees. There's 5 lessons on African honeybees. And so that's kind of how we priced it to, again, support the individual who's managing the online Master Beekeeper program, as well as the Bee Learning short courses. So essentially, again, this was not pandemic driven. This was something that we were planning to do. And that's, again, something you can access through our website. We also have a blog that you can subscribe to stay up to date, and on and on and on. One of the things that I want to point out too here, before I move away from our website as an online resource, is if you scroll down, you'll see that there is a button called Beekeeper Resources. Beekeeper Resources. If you click on it, everything that my team and I have produced that is free for consumption, we have categorized and placed under their respective topics. So for example, imagine tonight that I was giving you a talk on honeybee queen mating behavior. That's a biology talk. You could see, if you click on biology, you can scroll down and get a free document that I wrote on honeybee mating biology. So all of the biology topic related documents that my team and I produced, you can get for free under the honeybee biology tab. All of our management related documents, or pesticide impact related documents, or honey producing related documents, all of them are free under these respective tabs. And as my team and I create more and more and more and more information, we'll put all of that under these resources under our Beekeeper Resources tab on the homepage of our website. Again, all I did was find this website by Googling University of Florida honeybee. So I kind of really walked you through, just super quickly, some of the online resources that my team have. But remember, there's Master Beekeeper program, there's podcasts, there's Bee Learning short courses, there's documents, videos, all these things that we offer online. And I'll just tell you something else that you may be interested in as well. So not only do we do research at UF and do extension at UF, we also teach students at the University of Florida. My teaching colleague, Dr. Cameron Jack, is in the process of creating what we call a beekeeping certificate at the University of Florida. And so to explain certificate programs, imagine if you wanted to come to the University of Florida and wanted to take the beekeeping courses that we have at UF. You would have to register as an undergraduate student. You would choose a major such as biology or entomology or something. You could take our beekeeping courses, but you'd also have to take courses related to your major. The certificate program is basically college courses designed for folks who don't want a college degree. They simply want to take the courses related to a topic and be done with it. So essentially, Dr. Jack is packaging a lot of courses on honeybees and beekeeping that if students outside the university sign up for and take those courses, they are granted a certificate. So there's basically multiple ways that you can access the information in this topic. You can do it through our Master Beekeeper program. You could do it through our Bee Learning short courses, or you could do it through our instructional program, basically getting university credit. And incidentally, Dr. Jack has created and offers more courses on honeybees and beekeeping at a university than any other university that I'm aware of. He teaches Beekeeping 101, 102, practical beekeeping, honeybee biology, research in beekeeping. He's currently creating a course that he's offering for the first time in fall called Commercial Beekeeping. He's then going to create a commercial beekeeping internship. He's also in the process of creating 2 study abroad courses on beekeeping, one on beekeeping in Asia and one on honeybee diversity in Asia. By the time the dust settles, there will be 9 different courses on honeybees and beekeeping that you could take through UF. All right, I promise, no more University of Florida advertising. What I really want to do is broaden it to include another way to look at online resources. All right, so I work for the University of Florida. Dr. David Tarpey in North Carolina works for NC State. One of the things that our 2 respective institutions have in common is we are what is called land grant institutions. So a lot of people really struggle with what that means, but basically every state in the United States has had land set aside to create a public institution that is available to the masses of folks in those states. They are almost always University of something or something state university. University of Florida, University of Georgia, University of Tennessee, North Carolina State, right? There are some land grants in some states that have just unique names. Clemson University, Auburn University, South Carolina, and Alabama's land grants, respectively. But the reason that I'm telling you this is that land grants have responsibility in 3 things: research, teaching, and extension. Everybody, when they find out that I'm a professor, always asks me, what do I teach? But teaching is just one leg of the land grant mission. The other 2 legs are research. In other words, we have to do science. But the third leg is extension. And extension is what most people struggle understanding. If instruction is teaching university students, extension is teaching everyone else. Right this moment, I'm doing extension. Our Master Beekeeper program is an extension program. Our podcast is an extension publication. So land grants, the US over, have responsibility in extension. It is our responsibility to address the needs of our clientele in the states that we work. And the reason I'm telling you this is because almost always the bee scientist in the state is at the land grant institution. And it is that man or woman's job to provide research and extension services for beekeepers in that state. So let me, here you are with me at Google. If you just Google land grant university, the reason I'm doing this is to show you that it is incredibly easy to find out what the land grant universities are. I'm going to click now on images because I want to show you a map. The very first one is the map I want to show you. So I click on it. I know you can't easily see these words. I totally get that, but now you know how to find it. This is a map of the land grant institutions in the US and its territories. Many states have multiple land grants. There's, like in Florida, there's the University of Florida, and then there's the minority serving land grant, Florida A&M. I'm looking at North Carolina, and you have North Carolina State, where Dr. David Tarpey works, but you also have A&T State University, North Carolina A&T State University. My guess is that's the minority serving institution in your state. A lot of states in the upper part of the country also have Native American serving land grant institutions as well. Why am I telling you this for online resources? Well, I'm telling you this because land grant university folks who are bee people are mandated to provide to you exclusively science-based information. It is our job to cut through the fluff, not involve emotion or feelings, and instead say, these are the management practices that science supports. So when you're looking for reliable resources, you can always Google a state's land grant name and then honeybee and find their respective honeybee program if there is one in the state. So the way you would have found it for North Carolina, if you had not known that it's NC State and David Tarpey's program, you would have simply Googled North Carolina University honeybee. It no doubt would have taken you straight to Dr. David Tarpey's program. In your particular area, you've got South Carolina to your south. There's programs at Clemson. You've got Virginia to your north. There's a program at Virginia Tech. You've got Tennessee to your west. You've got a program at the University of Tennessee. There's a program at Kentucky State University, Tom Webster. There's a program at University of Georgia, Keith Delaplane, and on and on and on. And so these scientists are scattered across the country to address the needs in their respective states. So I gave you a very detailed look at my own university's program, but if I were to go to Google and Google NC State University honeybee, NC State University honeybee, and I press enter, there you go. Your very first option is Dr. David Tarpey's Apiculture and Beekeeping Resources Program. So there you will find information that is most applicable to beekeepers in the state of North Carolina. And the reason I feel that this is so important is because it is our mandate to provide science-based information. We are supposed to be a reliable source of information. So again, if you're just interested in finding, for example, in California, UC Davis is the land grant. So if you Google UC Davis honey bee and press enter, UC Davis Honey and Pollination Center, right? In Pennsylvania, it's Penn State University is the land grant. You can Google Penn State University honeybee and press enter, and your very first option, or two options, PSU Center for Pollinator Research and Beekeeping in Penn State. So knowing how to find a land grant and then knowing how to search them in honeybee will get you to information that is rich in your world. Now, one last piece of information that is incredibly useful to you with regard to land grants. About 10 or 15 years ago, I don't actually know the exact year, so I may be way off, the land grant universities across the country came together to create a single resource that is supposed to be the single clearinghouse for all information related to topics produced by land grants. Given that resources related to beekeeping is delivered through extension programs, and the same is true across all land grants, they called the website e-extension. It's basically extension with a capital X. So if you Google e-extension honeybee or honeybee health, e-extension honeybee health, and press enter, your very first option is the bee health page on the e-extension website. If I click on that page, it is the single clearinghouse through which most land grant institution information is routed. This is incredibly important because it's like one-stop shopping for all things coming out of the land grants about bee health. And I'm not suggesting that other universities don't do this as well. I'm just suggesting that it's land grants university job. And as a result, they've got lots and lots of information. So for example, if I hover over honeybee health, look at all the stuff that's provided by bee scientists around the country from the various land grants. If I hover over beekeeping, there's a video series and techniques, and et cetera, research, videos, and even a page for folks who want to study native bees or figure out information there. Fact sheets, tags, collaborators, and on and on and on and on and on. So basically, I showed you my lab. I expanded it to include all land grants. And now I took a step further up and told you how to find the E-Extension Community of Bee Health. All three of those are related to land grants, again, whose job it is to provide science-based information to beekeepers. And incidentally, it's the land grant's job to answer many of the questions that you have living in your state. In Florida, if you're growing citrus, there's citrus specialists and turf specialists and budgeting specialists. You no doubt have those exact same resources in North Carolina through NC State and your local county extension offices. All right. So I've really talked a lot about land grants, given my lab as a model, land grants in general, and then the bee health community of practice. Now let me talk about some things outside of university extension. There's three more things that I want to highlight as very good resources for beekeepers now that I've shown you how to find really a ton of resources. Because again, if you just Google any land grant institution's name and honeybee, if that land grant has a honeybee program, you'll just be inundated with information. All right. The next thing that I really want to show you is the Bee Informed Partnership website. Bee Informed Partnership. All right. So I simply Googled Bee Informed Partnership. My very first option is Bee Informed Partnership. In the business, we call Bee Informed Partnership BIP. So I'm just going to refer to it as BIP from henceforth. The Bee Informed Partnership was a partnership created first out of the University of Maryland as the lead institution. Again, the University of Maryland is Maryland's land grant. So it's University of Maryland with partner institutions around the country with a big federally funded grant. Since then, BIP's received lots of federal grants and other donations all over the place. But if you have heard that honeybees are dying, and if you have heard percentages of colonies that are being lost, and if you have heard what's causing these losses, then you have heard it from the Bee Informed Partnership. This is the group nationally that is monitoring bee losses through the yearly bee loss survey, and they're correlating beekeeper management practices with hive health. BIP offers a ton of services, and I'm not a member of this group. Incidentally, the other groups that I'm going to be endorsing, I'm not getting paid to endorse them. I'm not a member of BIP. I have worked with them in the past, but I'm not currently involved in BIP. But the reason I'm saying this is I'm endorsing this because I really believe it's a useful website. They have tremendous resources. So I'm simply hovering over the education and outreach. I'm not going to click on any of these, but the loss in management survey are the yearly numbers that tell us what bees are dying and what beekeepers say are killing them. And I'll show that now. So I'm going to click on the loss and management survey. If you've heard bees are dying, it literally comes from this survey. Probably some of you have filled out the survey for the Bee Informed Partnership. So I'm scrolling down and it says you can visualize some past state estimates on honeybee colony losses. So I'm going to click on that. And sure enough, it loads a national map. I hover over North Carolina. All right, apparently in this particular survey, 24.4%, I believe, of the beekeepers, if I'm reading this correctly, responded to the survey there in North Carolina. So you can click on that and find out all kinds of information about loss rates in North Carolina, what beekeepers in North Carolina say are killing their bees, and on and on and on and on and on and on and on. I'm trying to find North Carolina. All right, so apparently this was your loss rate, this was the range, number of respondents, and so forth. And incidentally, you can mine down into the free data on this website to see what your historical loss rates have been, what folks are saying are killing bees there. It's just a powerful tool that tells you what's going on in your state. So all I did was hover over education outreach and go down to loss and pest management survey. You can also look at data. You can figure out a lot of things. One of the things too that I really love is their Sentinel apiary program. I'm going to click on that. The Sentinel apiary program is where you can register a colony to be involved in a Sentinel apiary program. You pay a subscription fee basically, and you provide samples to them, and they will tell you disease and pest loads in those samples. Now, the fees might be a little high. Your subscription to this group might be higher than you want to pay. However, rather than doing it as an individual, you could do it as a local bee club, put a couple of Sentinel apiaries at your local bee club, sponsor it as a bee club, collect samples monthly, and at the next month's meeting, talk about the results of the analysis of those samples, and you would get real-time information on disease and pest loads of bees kept in your apiary. So to me, the beauty of the Sentinel apiary program is to show you when disease and pest loads go up and down throughout your year. And this is a service offered from the Bee Informed Partnership. So I highly recommend you just spend a lot of time on this website looking at their resources. I'm going to scroll down the webinars, the very last option under education outreach. They have already created a ton of webinars. They've put them all online for free. Data, honeybee diseases, Varroa, what can pollen tell us? Honeybee hygienic behavior and testing. Just the best and worst beekeeping practices, identifying brood diseases, spring into action with Sentinel apiaries, the loss management, and own and own and own. And all of those webinars are just right at your fingertips. And the Bee Informed Partnership, given that it's university based, federal government sponsored, they're giving you the same type of information that would come out of land grant institutions, and they're providing great services. So I hover over services. You can also register your colonies for technical transfer team, emergency response kits, and on and on and on. I don't want to go on for days about this. All I want to tell you is that you need to visit the Bee Informed Partnerships page and spend some time looking through it, because I really believe it is a great resource for you and can provide you lots of help in your beekeeping endeavors. And again, that's all without me currently being a part of the Bee Informed Partnership. All right, there's two more things I want to show you, and then I'll open it up to some questions. All right, the first of those. So this is now, I've talked to you about my lab, land grants in general, the e-extension website, the Bee Informed Partnership website. Now what I want to tell you about is the Honey Bee Health Coalition. Honey Bee Health Coalition. The beauty of Google is you don't even have to spell correctly. It'll fix it for you. So Honey Bee Health Coalition, I will press enter. Honey Bee Health Coalition is my first option after Googling it. There it is. Now, I am not a part of the Honey Bee Health Coalition. I do not receive funding from the Honey Bee Health Coalition. I'm simply referencing this online resource because I believe it is a good resource for beekeepers. Like the name implies, it is a coalition of groups. It can tell you who those folks are under about the coalition, how we help bees, how you can help bees. The reason I am such a huge fan of this website is because my first use of this website was through the need to produce Varroa related information. So if I hover over how we help bees, I'm going to skip straight down to Varroa because this is how I found them in the first place. And I promise I'll come back to the homepage and point out a few other things. But when I click on Varroa management, look at that first big word that you notice. Free Varroa resources. In my opinion, not being affiliated with them, not receiving funding from them, in my opinion, this is the single best web page on Varroa control on planet Earth. In fact, my team and I no longer write Varroa control documents because this website is the best there is, and we can't we can't create something better. If you scroll down, you will see that they have developed a huge document, a PDF document that you can download for free, and it shows how to monitor Varroa, when to treat for Varroa, what to use for Varroa, the efficacy, all of these things. For example, I'll click on download the guide, and it's going to load that PDF. It's going to take a moment, and it just goes through a ton of information related to controlling Varroa. 29 pages of Varroa control, monitoring. And even I'm going to scroll down to the end. It goes through times of the year, what are good options for control, how it works, what are moderate options for control, how it works, and what's terrible options for control. It does that throughout the year, depending on the state of your colony. As you bop on down to the end, every control option is mentioned, the research to show the efficacy of that control option, the BIP results, and on and on and on. It does it for the chemical controls. It does it for the non-chemical controls. Just in case you think I'm promoting chemical use in honeybee colonies, let me scroll on down. Screen bottom boards, right? Sanitation in your yard, drone brood removal, and on and on and on. You simply will not find a more thorough treatise of Varroa control on planet Earth, period. And it's free for you to download. Now, the beauty of the Honeybee Health Coalition is that they really thought this through. They didn't just create a guide, they created a decision support tool to help you know when to treat for Varroa. You can enter your information here. It'll tell you, you probably need to do something. If you think that's not enough, they've also created a presentation that you can download and show at your local bee club, even your next bee club, that outlines all the information on this page and how to address Varroa in your colonies. And if you can't stand watching a presentation and don't like reading documents, everything that they teach you in the document, they created a free video to reinforce. A video on how to sample, a video on essential oil controls, and Apivar, Apistan, Formic, Hopguard, oxalic acid, sanitation, drone brood removal, queens. It simply is the best. It's just the best. And again, that's me saying it without bias. And that's just one thing that the Honeybee Health Coalition provided. If I hover over, they've also got forage and nutrition documents, a huge free hive management document. It's pretty unbelievable. In fact, there is this huge document on best management practices for bee health, a guide that's simply designed how to keep bees appropriately, a guide for identifying and controlling the foul broods, and on and on and on and on. So I'm going to go back, hover over how we help bees, crop pest management, outreach and education, tools and resources, and the list goes on and on and on. So I feel that the Honeybee Health Coalition is a website, excuse me, worth visiting, worth bookmarking, and worth hanging out on, because it's not just one person's site. Dozens and dozens of folks went into creating the resources on this page from all walks of life. And I just think that it's a really, really, really good resource. So I'm going to show you this last resource. And before I get to this last resource, I want to share that obviously there's a ton of other resources. Local bee clubs have great websites and Facebook tools like yours, no doubt. State associations have great websites and social media accounts. The regional associations within the US, the Eastern Apiculture Society on our side of the country, the Heartland Apiculture Society in the center of the country, the Western Apiculture Society in the western part of the country, our two national groups, the American Beekeeping Federation, the American Honey Producers Association, another national group with the Apiary Inspectors of America, that shows you apiary inspection. There's lots of additional good resources, but I know for the sake of time and trying to keep your attention, I only really wanted to highlight kind of these 5.5, with the half being my lab, then the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 being land grant institutions, e-extension, Honeybee Health Coalition, the Bee Informed Partnership, and now this last website, a website called the Bee MD. The Bee MD. In fact, I'm going to press enter. This very first option, the Bee MD. Probably all of you are familiar with WebMD. And I haven't been on WebMD in a while, but WebMD has symptom checkers where you can click what symptoms you're experiencing or what part of the body that's aching at the moment or whatever you're feeling. You can answer as many questions as related to it as you possibly can. And then it spits out for you some possible candidates for what that condition might be. Well, in this particular case, what some folks did, I'm sorry, I was getting a phone call. I had to silence it on the side. There we go. This is a website that my team and I have participated in producing. Us, the University of Maryland, NC Greensboro, University of Delaware, Pollinator Partnership, APHIS, Bee Informed Partnership, and NAPSE. All of these groups, all of which, by the way, NAPSE, the Pollinator Partnership, and others websites you should visit, but all of us put together essentially the bee version of WebMD. So let me give you an example. Let's say I go into my colony and I'm seeing a brood condition that I don't know is American foul brood, but I know it's happening in brood. So I'm going to click that it's happening in brood. Then I'm going to say, well, it's happening in capped brood cells because I can see that. And do I see domed cappings? No, these are pictures of dome cappings. Do I see large dome, small black debris, multiple adjacent cells partially uncapped? Yeah, I kind of see that. And rotting prepupa stretching when pulled with a stick? Yeah, I kind of see that too. No, I don't really see this, but I definitely see spotty brood associated with it. And there's some cappings that are removed, and there's some holes in some of the cappings of these cells. And I don't know. I don't really see this. I definitely see some sunken cappings and some perforated cappings, and I don't see anything else. So I click diagnose the condition, and the website tells me that I have an 85% match for American foul brood. It tells me what American foul brood is, some details related to it, and some prevention strategies. And then it shows me photographs related to American foul brood so that I can match what I'm seeing to this. But it doesn't just give me the most likely match, it gives me some other potential matches. In this case, Varroa, perhaps Tropolaelaps, sac brood virus, heat stress, and then on and on and on down. So if beginning of the BMD, you basically start at the homepage and you can say, kind of walk your way through. Is it happening with adult bees? Is it happening with brood? Is it happening with a colony? And so forth. And it can kind of help you in the decision-making process as you are trying to figure out what condition is in my colony, how can I ultimately narrow down what it is, and then how can I address that condition. So again, we call this website the BMD. It's an absolutely free website and resource for you to be able to use. And it's kind of the fifth of the websites that I wanted to talk to you about tonight. Now, again, I could go on and on and on. I've been speaking now for about 50 minutes. So if one of your favorite websites is not on here, I apologize profusely. Obviously, there's a lot of other great websites out there, but I really wanted to spend some time sharing with you some of the ones that are incredibly vetted. A lot of folks have spent a lot of time working on these websites and putting in resources that we hope, and others have hoped if they're associated with it, that you guys will be able to use these as an opportunity to grow in your beekeeping experiences and know some great places that you can find some information that might be of value to you. All right. I have talked. So one thing that I want to do super quickly is, now that I have quit sharing my screen, I want to, if you'll bear with me just 1 second longer, what I want to do is put up some contact information for me, so that if you have any questions at all, you will know how to find me. And I will leave that up for about 30 seconds. So I strongly encourage you to take a picture of this page. Let me share the screen. If you'll take a picture of this with your smartphone, if you'll do a screenshot, you now see my web address. You now have our Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook accounts, our social media sites from the University of Florida Honeybee Lab. You've got information about our podcast. You've got my email address there. I strongly encourage you to take a picture of this somehow, some way over the next 20 seconds. I'll stop it after about 15 more seconds, and then I'll turn my video on so that you can see me and I can see you while I attempt to answer questions that you might have about some of these resources, as well as any other questions that you guys might have about bees and beekeeping. I can definitely do my best to address those questions. So about 5 more seconds, and then I'll take this down. All right, I'll stop sharing now. And what I will do is turn video on. And all right, I know that was a ton of information, and I know I went really fast. And I know I didn't tell you how to kill varroa or how to feed bees, but hopefully you found something in there that now you can go hunt down and trust some of these resources that would be of value to you as you're beekeeping. And I'm done. So what questions do you have? If you guys don't mind putting them in the chat box, and I'll do my best to try to answer some of those questions. No questions? Was it that terrible?
Jamie, one of our students from this year's class said we just graduated from drinking from a fire hose to directly drinking from the water main.
Well, good. I hope that's a good comment. But like you said,
excellent.
Good. Again, I know a lot of people hear a title of a talk like this. This is like ridiculous. I can't believe I'm going to sit through this. He's not going to teach me anything about bees, but hopefully I've just shown you how to fish, and now you guys can go benefit from all the resources that I've shared. Feel free to type some questions in, or just to come off mute and ask them out loud. I'll be happy to do my best to try to answer.
Jamie, this is Jeff Telander. I don't have any questions, but I can tell you, I listen to every one of your Two Bees in a Podcast every week, and I think it's the best one out there in terms of just good, solid information. I'm really grateful that you guys have it.
I really appreciate that. You know, we've been getting a lot of good feedback out of it. We're not sponsored in any way. There's no extra pay because of it. We're just doing it to try to provide another resource to beekeepers, you know, when they're traveling down the road or when they're exercising, just another thing that they can maybe listen to. And any way that we can help, we are trying to find our way to do that. So thank you for that positive feedback.
Jamie, one question was, you know, we know Texas A&M was our basically only resource for testing honey. Do you think they're going to get in it again, or what's
sure?
What's our alternative?
Yeah, so I'll answer that question out of absolute complete ignorance. But I will answer it because I know a lot about how universities work. But again, I could be absolutely wrong in this case. So the reason that their honey testing program, as everyone knows, went down is that Dr. Von Bryant, who ran that honey testing program, passed away. He ran an excellent program. He would receive samples of honey and look for pollen in it. And of course, you all know the rest. But the way universities work is they will often plug in faculty into positions of greatest need. So when faculty leave a university, or in Dr. Bryant's case, pass away, the university, the department that he will be in will often do a self-analysis to determine what type of faculty member they need to replace. So I do not know if Texas A&M has plans to restart the program, but I would strongly suggest that if that was a truly valuable resource, that you consider emailing Dr. Von Bryant, who's he's the CISA course, his department chair in the department that he was a part of, and emphasize the service that Dr. Von Bryant provided to the beekeeping industry, and stress that you hope that he is replaced by someone who can offer that service. So that would be my strategy. I know, for example, in our department, when we lose a faculty member, either to retirement or whatever, our department looks at its list of priorities with regard to the next hire they want to make. And it's not always consistent with the person who's no longer there. So for example, if I retired from UF, they wouldn't necessarily replace me with a B person. They might replace me with whatever the hot topic is that day. So if his program was of true value to you, you might consider contacting, his former department, whoever's leading his former department, and just emphasizing the service that he provided, and how you hope that he could be replaced by someone similar.
Yeah, that was a question that was on my mind as well, because in North Carolina, if you label honey, you have to have it tested. You have to have proof that it's 51% whatever,
Interesting.
sour wood or whatever,
Interesting.
before you can slap a label on it.
Yeah, well, in that case, losing that service was a great loss, right? So you've really got a couple of options now. I absolutely hate to speak on behalf of other faculty members. However, if this is a North Carolina mandate, you might check with Dr. Tarpey and see if it's something that would be offered either through his department or maybe through your state Department of Agriculture. I can imagine a situation in Florida. If Florida were to mandate something similar, my guess is that they would either come to the land grant, University of Florida, or go to the State Department of Ag to see if that service could be provided. And I'm not at all hinting that he should or could provide it. I'm just saying you might ask him for some pointers to see if there's any option for having that kind of strategy available in the state of North Carolina.
Well,
Jamie, I'm gonna go.
the reason, I'm going to say the reason behind the state doing that is that North Carolina sold more sourwood honey than it produced.
Yeah, I'm from Georgia. Probably all of you know that, and you can hear it in my accent. And I spent a lot of time in the North Georgia mountains, at least used to. And my wife's got an aunt who has a house not too far from Sylvan, North Carolina. So we're there a fair amount. And I love sourwood honey. It's my favorite honey on planet Earth. And I remember, I've been a bee person for 30 plus years now. And I remember coming through North Carolina one time and buying a jar of sourwood honey that could not have possibly been sourwood. And it was spelled with 2 words too, to get around the issue. It was sour space wood. And I understand, you guys have a very amazing resource to protect in North Carolina in sourwood honey. And I hope you guys are able to do it, because what a valuable honey that you guys produce. I'll tell
Jamie,
you,
I've got a question for you.
yeah, shoot.
I kind of walked in on the the University of Florida. You were mentioning the 4 different levels of programs that one can get, which is just basically a certificate, not I don't want to go back to college per se, but I certainly would be interested in your courses. Can you just dive into that a little bit more?
Sure, absolutely. So the way that we tell folks is there's basically 3 ways to get online information from us, kind of in a lecture series. You could either get it from us through our Master Beekeeper program, or you can get it through our bee learning modules, so the Master Beekeeper program, there's 4 levels you have to advance through. There's testing and all this stuff. There's all these lectures you have to watch. You have to do a lot of stuff, but there's 200 lectures in that program. So we repackaged that program to our bee learning short courses where you simply just take topics of interest. The third option is you can take it as a UF student, but not with pursuing a degree, but instead pursuing a certificate. So the example that I gave is, imagine if you come to the University of Florida and want to take the beekeeping courses, you have to major in something and you have to get a degree. Well, if outside the University of Florida, you want to take those courses and cut away the fluff and only take those courses, you can do it through our certificate program. And Dr. Cameron Jack heads that. So if you have more questions about our certificate program, which we are developing now, just email me at that email address I provided. I'll hook you up with Dr. Jack and he can tell you how to make it happen. And incidentally, like I said, I've named like 9 different courses, 6 or 7 of which have already been developed, 2 or 3 of which are still underdeveloped. I'm trying to remember how many he's still got to go. But to make a long story short, you can even go with us on the study abroad courses. So it's a really remarkable opportunity. And this certificate program, I think, is going to be very attractive to folks.
Okay, thank you.
So
Any
guys,
other questions?
yeah, I was going to say, if you feel like you don't have questions, we don't have to make long pauses of awkwardness on your behalf. You've got my email address. You know how to reach out to me. I can answer emails even when I'm not chatting with you face to face. So please feel free to use me in any way I can be used.
Dr. Ellis, we thank you again for your time.
My pleasure.
We really appreciate it.
Thank you all. You guys take care and happy beekeeping.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. We have a few things that I wanted to discuss, and other officers can chime in. We are, or the state is going to have testing on July 24th for your, well, if you want to pursue, something above the certified level, which a lot of you have taken, and this year's class, depending on your background or how long you've been working with bees, they want you to wait 4 months before you take the practical. But I've given a couple of practical tests to folks that have actually been keeping bees for a couple of years. So I've been able to do that recently, and some of our folks have done that as well. Yeah, July 24th is going to be at the Ag Building, and we can have the July. If you would like, we can. Hopefully, I talk to Cynthia and we can figure out if we can do a Zoom call at the Ag Building. But if folks want to meet in person, we can try that. If you want to wait till September, after our ice cream social in August at Don Moore's, we can do that. Debbie Roos is going to do the September. It's going to be a Zoom for her. She's not going to be able to come. But if you want to try to meet at the Ag Building in September, I'll find out from Cynthia if I would think that that the projector is capable of doing that. I know Mike, we've have access to internet there, so I'm sure we can do it. But that would, other than the ice cream social, which is out in the open, and that is homemade ice cream. I do need to make that clarification. somebody one year brought some Breyers, which I like Breyers, but I am partial to homemade. Any questions regarding that? We're going to send out more information.
Would that on the 24th be for the practical or for the written test, or both?
It's for the journeyman and master. It's both.
So for those of us who may not have been able to take the one earlier this year, we could take the written.
If you want to take the certified,
Mhm.
just contact me. I think the main, the testing, the master beekeeping program, generally people are there testing for the journeyman and master craftsman, which Don Moore is a master craftsman. Probably only one of half a dozen in the state. I don't see that in my future. If everybody's, hopefully you've had a chance to look over the fantastic newsletter that Caitlin put out, but it's time to start thinking about your North Carolina State Fair, and it's not how you are going to participate. It's not will you participate. It's how you're going to participate in our club's display, and also trying to get recognition for an outstanding bee product that you have, whether it be wax or a quilt or extracted honey, comb honey. I think there was a link on, wasn't it, Caitlin, on the newsletter?
The link is
maybe not.
it's actually going to go out in July.
Okay.
But it's how you can participate, not will you.
Yeah.
And the number of categories is way more than you would think. So there's also cosmetics, photography, food. Yeah, there's a lot. So we're going to send out more information in July. And if anybody wants to participate in any way or has a good idea or whatever, contact me, contact Cheyenne, send it to the club email, like whatever, shout it from the rooftops and we'll get it. Because we'd love to see a lot of entries this year. It would be great.
And we do need some help in, I think Cheyenne and Caitlin are the brain trust as far as what we're gonna do, but we just need some help in creating it.
Yeah, or loading in, building stuff. Like if pouring wax candles is not your thing, but you're cool with assembling or helping us the day of, like we'll take any kind of volunteer hours, in any way, shape, or form. Absolutely.
And the sooner we can get into the ag building, the sooner you'll be able to buy a t-shirt and a hat, which are going fast. So we need to get into that building. I got dry humor. I know most of you didn't even catch that. We have some nice wearable products that say Alamance County Beekeepers on them that we need to get on your backs or head.
Mhm. They're great conversation starters.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's
See?
You'd be amazed at how often you wear that shirt and you get asked a bee question.
Yep.
So, anybody have any other questions? I know that was I've heard Dr. Ellis talk before, and it's just amazing why his hair isn't gray, or like I said when I was introducing him, how he fits all that on a business card. I don't know. But that was a good question about the pollen testing, and that's, I guess, when we see Don Hopkins again, that can be a question for him if he's talked about it within his group, or maybe has discussed it with Dr. Tarpey. It's going to be difficult to get it tested if you have to send it overseas to get it tested. I'm not doing that either, Mike. All right. Anybody have anything else? Caitlin? No? Johnny? You're good.